How we doing, Patriot fans? Welcome back to the PrimeTime Patriots podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jake Mott. Excited here to break down this Week 4 matchup with the Patriots and the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field this Sunday at 4:25 kickoff. So let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time. We'll start with the Packers offense versus the Patriots defense. So they're far from loaded, are the Packers on offense, especially their receiving core. We'll get into them in a second. They're only averaging 16 points in the first 3 weeks. Played the Bears, who they handled very well week 2. Week 1, they lost to the Vikings 23-7 and had a real tough game against the Bucs last week. Won that game 14-12. Got shut out in the second half in that one, though. This offense, we obviously all know about Aaron Rodgers, but they are not loaded, very far from it. That receiving core is super, super thin. We're talking about Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. Those are your most dependable guys. You've seen a little bit of Romeo Doubs. He's a new guy. I believe he's a rookie. Aaron Rodgers developing some nice chemistry with him early on. He's been a go-to guy for him these first few weeks. Really just looking for anybody. You got Robert Tonyan at tight end, so some good, decent players. You talk about Cobb and Tonyan, at least in terms of their rapport with a lot of guys around the league, but nobody that's really going to make these big explosive plays and kill you downfield. At least they shouldn't. So I do have faith in the Patriots secondary and the young corners who have, again, week after week, we talk about how great these young corners have been playing. I think they step up again against this pretty lackluster receiving core and make it tough on Aaron Rodgers in the passing game. Where the Packers can hurt the Patriots is their running game. Their strength is their line and a couple pretty good backs. They got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. They can cause problems with you, especially in the pass game, which I'm most nervous about. The Patriots really don't have good cover linebackers, not good linebackers in coverage. So I think somebody like Aaron Jones, who is one of those premier dual threat guys in the league, I think if he can get himself matched up on linebackers, he could get 5 or 6 catches in this game for maybe 40 yards or so that are going to be a big difference maker. I'm talking like third down plays, third and longs, second and longs where they need to pick up a big chunk. I think you'll see them try to take advantage of that matchup they have with their running backs against the Patriots' slower linebackers. So keep an eye out for that. I do, however, think that the Patriots are one of the better defenses they've played in these first 4 weeks. I don't think they're as good as the Bucs, but I think they're a pretty solid defense. And I think you're going to hold them somewhere right around 20 here, somewhere in that like 17 to 23 range. We'll get into that a little more specifically when we get to the predictions at the end. But yeah, I don't think their offense is really going to dominate you today, but that's not today, in a couple days here on Sunday. But the other side of the ball is obviously the big concern, especially with the absence of Mac Jones. So, high ankle sprain is the, I guess, still unofficial confirmation for Mac Jones for his injury. He was at practice today. He was moving around, not well, very clearly hampered on one leg, but was moving around in a 5-yard by 5-yard space, simulating a pocket. And he was kind of just moving around. Again, a lot of weight was sitting on that right foot, that healthy foot. Really was babying that weak foot, but he was out there and he was throwing balls around. He could be back much sooner than any of us thought, but definitely not this week. It's going to be Brian Hoyer. So that's what we're going to be keeping an eye on here for the Patriots. Let's look at our offense with Brian Hoyer versus the Packers defense. So Packers defense has a great secondary. Jair Alexander, at cornerback. Great safeties, too, in Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. These guys are really, really loaded in the secondary. They're probably a top 5, definitely a top 10 secondary in the league. I think they're going to give hell to these Patriots receivers. We know they're not super talented. Devontae Parker had a great game last week. Kendrick Bourne's getting his way on the field a little bit more, but Hunter Henry's been a non-factor. Jonnu Smith has been better than Jonnu Smith last year, but if it wasn't, it'd be good production from any other player besides somebody you're paying that much money and has the namesake that Jonnu Smith has. So he's just been a stereotypical average tight end, not getting anything from Henry right now. Should have Jacoby Myers back for this game, and that should be huge, but it's not the same sort of chemistry with Mack and Jacoby Myers versus Hoyer and Jacoby Myers. I'm sure it will be a little different. I still think Jacoby Myers should be and probably will be your most effective receiver, but they're not going to be on the same page maybe as they would be. That could be BS as well because Hoyer's been here plenty of time as well. He's thrown to Myers a fair amount of times. He's been practicing with him. So we'll see how it goes. But their front seven is a little weaker, especially in terms of names. You really don't recognize many of these names in the front seven, but they're still pretty solid. The first two games, they're pretty crappy on the ground. They allowed 126 to who was it? Minnesota. 126 on the ground in Minnesota, and they allowed 180 on the ground to the Bears, which was weird to see, especially because they won that game 27-10. Not sure why the Bears were running as much as they were, but there's some really crazy stats, running stats in that game, especially in terms of average. I think Montgomery had like 8.5 per play or something per rush. So that was weird to see, and obviously you love to see that as a Patriot fan, but last week was the exact opposite. They totally stepped up, shut down the Bucs, only allowed 34 yards rushing for the whole team of the Bucs. So it's really just a question here. It could be either one that you're going to get. Obviously, if you want any chance in this game, you're going to have to do it on the ground. It's the strength of your offense. Your starting quarterback's out, and they got a great secondary. It's really the only thing that you have, the only real chance you have in this game is effectively running the ball. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, I think if you're talking about winning, got to combine for somewhere in the 150 area, probably a couple touchdowns as well. Again, I think the defense is going to play well, especially if you force Aaron Rodgers to have to pass over and over and over again. Besides that matchup with Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon against some of the Patriots linebackers, I think if you force them to throw repeatedly over and over and over again, might force a mistake from Rodgers, able to turn the ball over. But at the very least, I think it'll be inconsistent. I mean, we're talking about Randall Cobb, who's like 85 years old. Robert Tonyan blew his ACL last year, blew like everything in his knee last year. I mean, they shouldn't kill you. They really shouldn't. So yeah, the Patriots are going to have to get this done on the ground offensively. Try to get out to a lead, force the Packers to have to keep passing that ball and be less one-dimensional. And then the Patriots, obviously, if they're leading, can lean more on that run game, and it's more expected. Unfortunately, I think if somebody as stupid as me can figure it out, I think the Packers can figure it out as well. I think they're going to totally sell out for the run in this game, and they're just going to make Brian Hoyer try to beat him with his arm, which I don't think can happen. Personally, I think it's the popular opinion here in New England. I mean, I don't think people hate Brian Hoyer. I don't hate Brian Hoyer. He's a backup quarterback. I think he is what he is. Obviously you've heard all week he hasn't won, I think, like any of his last 11 starts or something. Like he hasn't won since 2016. That sucks, obviously. But I don't dislike Brian Hoyer. I don't think the offense is a complete shit show with him out there by any means. I think he handles it pretty well. He's obviously very comfortable in the system, even though it's had its changes this year. Think about some of the times we saw Hoyer in the preseason. First preseason game, Hoyer came out, got the start, drove the team right down, scored a touchdown right away to Tyquan Thornton. So it's not like this offense is going to just be a complete non-factor because Brian Hoyer's in the game. You might miss a couple throws, a couple reads, but I would argue, look, especially with how Mac Jones has played these first 3 games, if Brian Hoyer plays near his ceiling, you're going to get basically the same level of play, and I could argue maybe even a little better. If Brian Hoyer is doing what he's supposed to do, he's not going to be turning the ball over. I don't think he's going to throw for 320 like Mac did last week, but I doubt he'd have 3 picks if he's playing well. I think on a good day, Brian Hoyer could give you somewhere in the 250 range passing. It's really not that much nowadays, but somewhere in that range, and maybe even a couple touchdowns. And then if you limit turnovers and run the ball well, and you can get 230, 240 out of Brian Hoyer and a couple touchdown passes, you're in this game. I really don't think it's as far as people are making it out to be. And I don't think the loss of Mac Jones, especially with how he's been playing, is as drastic as people are making it out to be. So again, just to sum up the offense against their defense, I don't think it's going to be a train wreck, but I think it will be just barely not enough. I think there'll be a few plays you miss here, maybe a couple deep shots downfield. Say the running game's going really well, you go to some play action. I could see Hoyer maybe missing one or two deep shots that could be the difference or could at least keep the game a lot closer. Final prediction for this one, I got the Packers winning 23-16. I think the Patriots, that 16 I took with a touchdown and then I think 3 field goals. I think they'll be able to move the ball, but I think once they get down into the red zone, I think they're just going to stall out because I think the Packers are going to totally sell out for that run game, and then they're going to force Brian Hoyer to make throws into tight windows, and I think it's going to be a lot of attempts for Nick Folk. I think the Patriots are going to be pretty conservative, especially probably won't be going for it on like 4th and 3 from the 33 like last week for no reason without your starting quarterback. So we will see how that goes. Again, final prediction, 23-16 Packers. I think the Patriots keep this one close. If they can get out to a lead, who knows? Could force a turnover or two, excuse me. But yeah, Patriots need to start hot, stay hot, and not turn the ball over to really have a chance in this game. They're big underdogs, and for good reason, so we'll see how it goes this Sunday at Lambeau Field, and I will see you guys in the days coming up right afterwards to break it down, and then we'll look ahead next week as we do. So thanks again, guys, so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Drop a like, share it around, subscribe if you're not already. Go Pats.